Okay, part two of ZBrush to Photoshop. So I'm in Photoshop now, as you can probably see, and I'm going to open up the ZBrush files that I saved for my renders. So I remember it was these three. I've got the mask, the shadow, and the shaded, which is just the color version. And click open. And there's my guy, okay, like so. And I'm going to use this file as kind of the holding zone for everything. So I'm going to turn off the lock here. And the first thing I want to do is get my mask in here so that it sits and basically gets rid of the background. Okay, so I've got my mask open here too. And I'm going to go to Image, Mode, and change this to grayscale. For some reason, ZBrush makes these things multi-channel, and they really should just be grayscale. Sometimes Photoshop will fix that on its own, but not always. So I just like to play it safe. So I'm going to select all and copy. Okay, and I'm going to go back to here. And I want to put this in as a layer mask. So I'm going to click this little button right down at the bottom of the layers menu. That puts this in, like so. And to actually paste something into the layer mask, you need to hold down Option or Alt on a PC. Click on the layer mask. You won't see anything, but it's now selected. And then you go to Edit, Paste. I'm going to do Paste Special, Paste in Place, which is going to keep it aligned with the previous image. Since they're both the same size, it would probably do this anyway, but this is a good way to make sure that works. So I can see that's in there now. Now if I click back on my color image, I should see the little checkerboard behind it. Yeah, so everything's masked out nicely. Then I want to do the same thing with my shadow. Okay, so I'm going to click select all, copy that, like so, go back to my shaded image, and I'm just going to paste special again. And that's just going to paste it in as a layer, but it's going to paste it in place. Okay, so it's stuck it on top of here. If I change this to multiply like this, that's going to let the color show through underneath while letting that shadow sit there as well. Okay, like that. And that's really what I want here. So that I can then take this guy and noodle it a bit if I want to. If I wanted to modify the levels on this or blur this mask a little bit more, I could do so on this, not this mask, the shadow on here. Okay, like so. For now though, I want to get my jungle in there to see how that looks. So I'm going to click on this guy and just select all, copy. Now this thing doesn't really have a particular position here. I'm going to have to do that myself. So I'm just going to paste this in here like so. See, it's a little smaller than it was prior, but if I drag this down now, I should be able to see my guy on top of it. And I'm going to just scale this. So I'm going to hit Command T and just bring this up a bit so it looks about like I had it when I was previewing it in ZBrush with this file behind it. I remember I had the tail crossing this tree over here, which I want to push back. And I want to make this a little bigger or smaller. Yeah, smaller. Something like that. Look, that looks okay. I'm just going to hit Enter to set that in. And then I'm going to go to the crop tool, which is C. And that's going to crop all my layers at once. So I can just crop it down to the actual scale I've got here. Like so. And you can see now I've got the shadow on the ground, which helps a lot to make this thing look real. Hit Enter to lock that in. Oops, that didn't quite take. You can see again. Just push that up a little bit. There we go. Better. Okay. Like that. Okay. So that's okay. Nothing great. But I'm going to do what I do want to do is take this layer. I'm going to click on this layer mask. And I'm going to get my brush tool and just paint out the tail here where that sits on top of there. Now I've got white selected. I really want black. So as you can see, that's just making that go away. Give a little bit more reality there. I probably need to do the same thing on my shadow, but I will leave that till later. You can kind of see that's floating underneath there, like so. Okay. And you could do the same thing here if you had some leaves or some other stuff on the ground. You could paint the mask out where where you want that to kind of be in front of your character. It adds a lot to that, helps that out a lot. The other nice thing about doing things this way is then you can start to modify your actual image here like this. So let's say I wanted it, this maybe looks too bright to me. I could go in here and drop like a hue and saturation channel up on top here. When you have something that you only want to affect one channel, in other words, I don't want it to affect this layer 2 underneath here, you hold on Option on the modification channel here, and you see this little arrow shows up. That basically links it only to the one that's right underneath it. Okay, and that can be really handy because now I can tweak this. Let's say I want to push this color to be a little more green looking, like it looks a little more realistic in this environment here. And I can modify the lightness or darkness of this too, if it's too bright or too dark, without affecting this stuff underneath. Okay, I'm not sure if that's the right way to go here. As you see, you can make some pretty dramatic shifts in your color range by doing that. And I just wanted a little bit there, something like that. Okay, that looks okay. The other thing I usually encourage you guys to do is to, in order to integrate the background and the foreground a bit more, is to put like a gradient on top of the whole thing, or even just a plain color. I'm going to use a gradient here just because I think I could do that. Yeah, it's perfect. So I'm going to click on this and change this color to something more greenish. I think I want it to be a little more dark, like that maybe. I'm kind of just looking at the overall green feel of the environment here. Clicking that. And then the nice thing is that you can then take this and then start to tone down the opacity a lot. Okay, you'll see how that just kind of pulls the foreground and the background together a little bit and gives you a little bit more of the environment pulling into the character. Okay, it can be really subtle. You don't need to do a lot with it, just enough to kind of give it a look. It's in the shadow underneath these limbs and stuff like that. Okay, so that's just kind of the process you're going to go through. And like I said, this is on the handout I gave you guys, so you can follow it there as well. But it's pretty simple once you do it 30 or 40 times. Okay, so start now. Okay, that's part 2. Fini.